Good morning, and welcome to the Salem Lutheran Church Sunday morning Bible study. We'll be getting started in just a few moments. If you'd like to join in on the discussion, please join us by going to slcw.org and clicking the link to join the group. We'll be starting in just a few moments.
Well, good morning. Good morning, and welcome to our Bible study here at Salem Lutheran Church. Today we're going to be discussing Psalm 142. Yes, Psalm 142. So if you turn in your Bibles, you can follow along with us in Psalm 142. I'm going to read some introduction stuff from the commentary that I use that talks about this psalm. It says the word for contemplation, masil, could be better translated as an instruction. This psalm is titled in the book of Psalms as a contemplation of David, a prayer when he was in the cave. And the word contemplation in Hebrew could better be translated, this commentator says, as instruction. And I'm quoting, he calls this prayer maschil, a psalm of instruction, because of the good lessons he had himself learned in the cave, learned on his knees. And so he learned that he desired to teach others. And then later on, the commentary says, there are two notes running side by side throughout the song. The first is that of this terrible sense of helplessness and hopelessness, so far as man is concerned. The other is that of the determined application of the helpless soul to Jehovah or Yahweh. Anyway, what that's all saying is that historically, at this time, David had just fled from the capital city, from the palace of King Saul. And remember, up until this time, David was a valued member of the palace, the royal household, going back to the time when he had stepped forward and taken on the giant Philistine Goliath and killed him with that little slingshot of his. Although, as I've always said, those slingshots were more than just little toys in Israel. They were really terrible weapons. In fact, many of the armies of that era used slingshots and archers in their army. Most famous one was Alexander the Great, who used the slings in his wars against the Persians. Anyway, but he had been in the royal household, and suddenly Saul and the advisors to Saul saw David as a threat to the kingship, especially since he was making overtures towards Michal, who was the daughter of King Saul. And if he had indeed married Michal, which he eventually did, that would even solidify his threat to King Saul, because that would place him in the royal bloodline. He had married the daughter of the king. So that would place him in that royal bloodline and therefore even accentuate his threat to Saul and his reign as king. And because of that, they tried to kill David many times. Saul tried to kill him. Some of his advisors tried to kill David, to the point where David had to flee. And in the beginning, David left the capital city, fled into the wilderness, and we're told that he, by himself, went to this cave. The cave, which is called, I'll find it here, Adullam, which is a cave in southern Israel. And there he stayed. And it was while he was there that he wrote this psalm in which he expresses his hopelessness and his helplessness. And as I was reading that, some personal thoughts popped into my head of times when I have felt helpless and hopeless. And the time that came to my mind most often was when I lost my wife. I can still remember that day very clearly. I always thought Doris was a wonderful wife. She was good listener, very contemplative, always gave me good advice. When I would go off the deep end, she always pulled me back. And I remember the day when I came down from my bedroom to the bedroom we had built for her with a hospital bed, and I found her unresponsive. And so I immediately called 911, and they rushed her to the emergency room at Worcester Hospital. And from there, she was taken to Akron General Hospital. And I remember sitting there alongside of her in the bed, and the doctors had told me there was no chance she was not going to become conscious again. She was not going to recover, that it was just a matter of time before she would pass away. And I remember sitting there for 2 days, and I felt such hopelessness. I was going to lose my wife, who I had been married to for, at that point, 45 years. And I felt so helpless. Now, I hope this doesn't sound too misogynistic, but in the era that I grew up in as a young man, I was always taught that my responsibility was to take care of my family, to take care of my wife, the woman in my life. And suddenly I found myself there sitting by the bed, feeling totally with hopelessness, and felt totally helpless. I was supposed to do something. I was supposed to take care of her. And here I could do nothing except sit there and hold her hand and watch her slowly die. I remember watching the blood pressure gauges on the machines, watching the blood pressure drop ever so slowly, hour after hour. And for 2 days I sat there feeling totally helpless, could do nothing except hold her hand and watch my wife of 45 years leave me. What hopelessness, what helplessness I felt in that moment. And I'm sure that some of you out there who are listening have probably had those same kind of feelings at one point or another in your life, when you felt totally there was hopeless. There was no hope, nothing that was going to change the inevitable of what was coming, and the feeling of helplessness. Nothing you could do, nothing you could say, nothing that you could do. And with all of my education, with all of my intellect, with all of my trainings, there was absolutely nothing I could do except sit and hold my wife's hand and watch her leave me. For 2 days, I watched my wife die and then finally leave me. And that's, if you can get in touch with those kinds of feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, then you can understand what David was experiencing. He was feeling those same kinds of hopelessness and helplessness as he sat in that cave, feeling that he was hiding. Here he had been, he thought, a good servant to Saul, had led his armies in victory after victory. And now here he was hiding in a cave all by himself, deserted by everyone. Nobody would come to David's aid. They were afraid if they came to David's aid that they would suffer the same fate they knew David was going to suffer, that David would ultimately be killed. And they knew that probably would happen to them if they showed too much friendship to David. So here's David sitting in this cave, in this dark cave, all by himself, not knowing what he's going to do, not feeling that there is nothing he can do, that it's a totally hopeless situation, and that there's nothing, he is totally helpless, nothing he can do. So if you understand that, then you're going to understand the psalm. And the psalm starts out with David's cry to the Lord. I cry out to the Lord with my voice. With my voice to the Lord, I make my supplications, the psalm begins. And again, the word Lord there is translated as Yahweh. And Yahweh is the word that is used for the covenant God. Remember, we always say the first time we really come across that word Yahweh is in the story of the burning bush, where God comes to Moses in the burning bush and is basically asking him to go down to Egypt and to save the people. And at the end of this conversation, when Moses comes up with all of his excuses as to why he shouldn't do it, he finally says to the burning bush, to God, well, when I get down there, who shall I say has sent me? You're going to ask me, who gives you the right to come down to Egypt? Who gives you the power, the authority? And he says, you tell them Yahweh has sent you. The best translation for Yahweh from the Hebrew is the one who is, was, and ever will be. But Yahweh is always associated with the concept of the covenant God, the God who made a promise to Israel, to all the people of Israel, that I will be your God and you will be my people, that I will guide you, I will protect you, and I will bring you out of Egypt into a land flowing with milk and honey, into the promised land. And so this Yahweh is the covenant God, the God who made promises. And David is calling upon this covenant God, the God who promised that he would be with his people. And he says, I cried out to Yahweh with my voice. With my voice to Yahweh, I made my supplication. So he's calling upon God to keep his promises, his promise that he would be with him and always with him. This was David's appeal to Yahweh, the covenant God, in his moment of total hopelessness and helplessness, to keep his promises, the promises that he would be with David. After all, it was Yahweh who sent Samuel to seek out David when he had decided that Saul should no longer be king. It was Samuel who came in the name of Yahweh and chose David to be the next king. It was Yahweh who sent Samuel to anoint David at his home as the next king of Israel. And he says, you made that promise that I would be the next king. You promised that you would be with me. You promised that you would walk with me. You promised that you would be beside me in each and every moment of life. And so I'm calling upon that promise. I'm asking you to keep your word. I cried out to Yahweh, the covenant God. Keep your word. Keep your promises. With my voice to the Lord, I make my supplications. I cry out to God for help and strength at a time when I feel hopeless and totally helpless. And again, like I've said before, I'm sure many of you out there who are listening have felt that same way from time to time, a feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. And so David is saying at those moments, we need to cry. And when you're sitting in your caves, surrounded by darkness, surrounded by a feelings of hopelessness, cry to the Lord. And so he goes on to say that he put his complaint, his question, his needs before God. I pour out my complaint before him. I declare before him my troubles. I declare before him. What was his troubles? I'm all alone. I have no one to turn to. I have no one to give me consolation. I have no one to stand beside me. I'm hiding in this cave all by myself, overcome by my grief and my feelings of hopelessness and helplessness. And so I pour out that complaint before him. Before who? Before Yahweh. I declare before him my troubles. I lay my burden at his feet. I declare my troubles. Again, David feeling all alone by himself. Have any of you ever felt that way?
Yes.
Had those moments in life when you felt there was nowhere you could turn to, no one you could turn to, no one who could help you, no one who could get you out of this deep, dark well that you felt like you were in. All you could do was sit there alone and cry. And that's what David is expressing here. I laid my complaint before God. I said, I'm all alone. You promised you'd be with me. You promised you'd be beside me. And so we go on in the Psalm. In the Psalm we're at verse 3. When my spirit was overwhelmed within me, then you knew my path. In the way in which I walk, they have secretly set a snare for me. Again, he's talking about those people in Saul's court who were trying to capture him, trying to entrap him, trying to ensnare him. In the way in which they have secretly set a snare for me. Look on my right hand and see, for there is no one who acknowledges me. There's no one coming to help me. No one is coming to give me aid, to give me encouragement. There is no one who acknowledges me. Refuge has failed me. No one cares for my soul. And the word refuge there is important because in Israel, the laws of Israel had set up what we call refuge cities. So what was a refuge city? Well, let's say that you had accidentally committed a crime, maybe accidentally had killed somebody. And of course, the family of the one who had been killed had the right to take your life. That was the law of the land at that time. Unless you went to refuge cities. There were certain cities in Israel which were called refuge cities. If you got to them, no one could come in and take you. No one could kill you. They had to basically have a trial. And so there were places of refuge where someone could go to escape punishment and await justice and await a trial. And so David's saying, there is no refuge for me. There's no place for me to go where I will be safe. There's nowhere where I can go to get justice. I have done nothing wrong. I have not been a threat to Saul. I have not tried to take his crown. I have tried to be a good servant, a good friend in that royal kingdom. And there is no one who's come to my aid, and there is no place I can go where I can seek refuge. Because no matter where I go, they're going to try to kill me. I know that. And that's what he's feeling when he's sitting in this deep, dark cave. When my spirit was overwhelmed within me, you knew my path. There's an interesting line in there. You knew my path. I remember a professor I had in the seminary, and I always remember what he told me one day, where he said I had gone home before during my first year in the seminary, and that's when my mother had died. She died of cancer about right after Christmas of my first year in the seminary. And I remember talking to my pastor and then talking to this professor after all of that. And I was really kind of down in the dumps. My mom was very important to me as a child growing up. Even though my brother would hate it when I said it, he always knew that I was mom's favorite. I was the first one in the family to go on to college. I was the first one to get an education. And so she was always very proud of that. And when she died, it was like a part of me was just ripped out of my soul. And I remember I couldn't understand why this good woman had to suffer like she did and then die like that. And I remember talking to this professor of mine who was a real comfort to me. And his name was Franzman. In fact, he wrote one of the hymns that I use at every one of my ordination or every one of my installations in a new church called Thy Strong Word. For those who are Lutherans out there, you maybe know that hymn, Thy Strong Word. Anyways, and I remember him telling me, he said, the problem that we have in life is that we look at life and see it in its moment to moment events. We see it in these little capsules, this day, this hour, this minute. But he said, when God looks at our life, well, let me back up. He said, we see our life in these moments, in this minute, in this second, in this hour, in this day, and we just don't understand why this is happening. Why am I going through this? And he said, the difference is that when God looks at us, he sees our entire life from beginning to end, stretched out like a long path, like a long road. And he sees how all of these pieces of our life, all these moment to moment events in our life, all fit together to make the life that we have. And I have to say that as I look back now on my life, those moments, especially when I was feeling those feelings of hopelessness and helplessness and couldn't understand the why of them, I look back on them now and I see how all of those made me the person that I am, made me the kind of pastor I was to become, made me the kind of counselor that I was to become. That God looks at that and sees how all these things fit together like a giant jigsaw puzzle. And when we look at a jigsaw puzzle, I'm a big jigsaw puzzle maker. And when we do jigsaw puzzles, sometimes we look at the pieces and just don't see how they're going to fit together to make this picture. But if we keep working at it and putting all the pieces together, suddenly we have this beautiful picture that's been created. And that's one thing since I've retired, I've been spending a lot of time doing jigsaw puzzles. And to see how all these pieces fit together. We don't see it at the beginning. They're just random pieces. But as we start locking them together piece by piece, we start building a picture until finally you put that last piece in and you step back and you look and say, oh, now I see how all those pieces fit together. And that's what this psalmist is saying. When my spirit was overwhelmed within me, when I had those feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, you knew my path. You saw my life from its beginning, from my birth until my death. You see everything that's past, present, and future. And you see how all those pieces fit together to bring me to the point that I am at right now. That is the point of this psalm. So he says, when my spirit was overwhelmed within me, you knew my path, in the way in which I walk. So the way that I'm walking, you see it, you understand it. We don't. And that's why we have those feelings of helplessness and hopelessness and wonder, where is God in all of this? Why hasn't God done something? I've been a good person. I've been a good and faithful servant to God. I've gone to church every Sunday. I've tried to raise my family to be God-fearing. Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And I just don't see the reason for it, and I don't see an end to it. Because we're looking at it in the moment-to-moment shots. And David is saying, when my spirit was overwhelmed within me, I took comfort in what? That you knew my path, in the way in which I walk. You are Yahweh, and I trust that you will bring me to the place where I'm supposed to be. And he goes on, though, to do his complaints, though. They have secretly set a snare for me. Look on my right hand and see. He's looking to God and says, look what they're doing. Look on my right hand. See what they're doing to me. Seeing how they're talking against me. Seeing how they're coming after me. See how they're trying to snare me. See how they're trying to kill me. Look on my right hand and see. For there is no one who acknowledges me. It wasn't bad enough that these people were coming after him, but that there was no one there to comfort him. No one there to stand with David. He was all alone. And that, I think, is the worst feeling, when you're feeling those hopelessness and helplessness. It's not bad enough to feel helpless, but to feel that you're all alone in this. There is no one who understands, and worst of all, there is no one who cares. No one who cares. And that's what David is acknowledging. For there is no one who acknowledges me. Refuge has failed me. There's no place where I can go to find comfort and strength. No one cares for my soul. There's nobody who cares for me. I'm all alone. I'm facing a situation. There's no hope in it. I feel totally helpless. And there is no one who cares for me. I'm all alone in this. And the only strength David can find is in Yahweh, to trust that Yahweh will provide for him and care for him. And I don't mean to be preachy, but again, I'm saying that I don't think there's anyone out there who hasn't been touched by that. When you have found yourself in a moment in your life when you felt totally helpless and hopeless, felt like you were all alone. There was no one you could go talk to, no one that would give you strength and help you through this. If you have somebody like that, you're a very fortunate person. And I have to admit that in the deepest, darkest moments of my life, I've always had somebody who would sit and listen to me, somebody who would actually show that they cared. If you have somebody like that in your life, cherish them. They are very special, for they will help you get through those bad moments. But David is feeling there is no one. Now, he was wrong, because eventually people came to him. He gathered a band around him that kept growing and growing and growing until finally, when David was able to almost raise his own army among Israel, because there were people there who listened to him. But at the time David was in this cave, he didn't see it. All he could see was being driven out of the capital city. All he could see was people coming after him. All he could see was people plotting against him. All he could see was people trying to kill him. And there was no one who was going to help him. And that's why he cries to Yahweh, the covenant God. Come to me with strength. Come to me with help. And God is saying to David, even though he doesn't hear it, don't worry, I'm with you. You'll come through this. And David did, because he eventually became the great king of Israel. He eventually sat upon the throne. He eventually had all the promises that God had given to him fulfilled. And I think I'm going to stop there. That's a good place to stop in this psalm. So I hope you don't feel like I was being too preachy, but I think this psalm speaks to a lot of us. Anyways, we'll pick it up here with David's psalm next Sunday. And so we'll finish off Psalm 142. Until that time, I'm going to turn to Tim and say, hey, Tim, what's going on at Salem this week? Can't hear you. You're muted.
I have to unmute myself. That's what I have to do.
I wish I could do that during Sunday services.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So we got lots going on this week.
I tease.
Yes, I know. We have, right following our worship, we have fellowship downstairs in our fellowship hall. Hopefully, if you're coming to our worship at 10 a.m., that you'll join us for fellowship following. We also have a very special meeting today. This is the second meeting of the 200th anniversary steering committee today, where we are being hopefully assigned some tasks to accomplish in the next month, so we can continue to move forward with our plans for a year-long celebration of Salem on its 200th anniversary, its bicentennial anniversary. And that will happen following the fellowship hall or fellowship that we have downstairs. It'll be maybe even part of it. Join us for that if you're in the area. If you are not in the area and you want to join us on that, you can go there at the same link that you would go to see the Zoom Bible study that we have listed both for Sunday morning and Friday evening. If you click on that link at about noon, we'll be set up and you'll be able to join us in that steering committee meeting. So if you're wanting to be a part of this, be able to help out in some way, connect with us via Zoom at 12 o'clock today. Coming up this week, Monday night NFL Monday night happens on Monday night at 6 o'clock. We host a hot meal here at Salem in the fellowship hall downstairs. And that's the nourishment and fellowship side of things. And then the fellowship and learning continues at 7 o'clock with us watching another episode of the Chosen series. And that goes until after we watch the video, we have a discussion. It goes until we're done talking. So please join us Monday nights for a meal and some Bible study. NFL Monday night is what we call it. We'd love you to join us. Once again, I've mentioned before about our year-long Bible reading program called Cover to Cover. And we are attempting to read the Bible from cover to cover in a year's time, a little bit over a year's time. But we started back on Easter Sunday, and we will continue on through the end of the Easter season next year in the goal of reading the Bible from the cover to cover. And on Fridays, we get together via Zoom to discuss how we're doing, get some support in getting back on track if we're off track, helping others understand what we're reading because some of it's pretty difficult. And we have a quiz, we watch a video, we add to our prayer list and pray for others. And we also look to support a local community program that we started supporting in Lent, and we will continue to support through this Bible study program throughout the end of the year. So join us on Friday nights at 7 p.m. via Zoom. You can check these things out at slcw.org. And anything else that we have going on, you'll find it there. So thank you very much. I think that's all I have for you, Pastor. Hand it back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Tim. Sounds like we got a lot going on. I hope who are listening will come and take advantage of some of these things. Anyways, I'd like to take this opportunity in my last minute to wish to you all a very wonderful week. May God's blessings flow down upon you. May you have a good and safe week. But most of all, as I always say, may God keep you smiling until we meet again. Until next Sunday for our Bible study, God's blessings, God's peace, God's love be with you. See you next Sunday.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.